This is going to be short. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wrestling with Whiskey channel. I am Matt Raywalt, your host, and we are concluding our series on the current Broken Barrel releases today with Heresy Rye Whiskey. If you haven't seen my other reviews, well, go check them out. If you have, you know I taste these all multiple times, and this one has me the most excited. Well, I mean, as you can see, it's the one I've finished the most of before I've done my review because I really have been into rye whiskeys lately. And what's interesting about everything that Broken Barrel is doing, they are doing finishing, but not in the traditional way. Instead of a secondary barrel, they are taking staves from a secondary barrel, breaking it down, and putting it into that original barrel for a while to finish it that way. And so far, I've found it to be a generally interesting and well-taken process that may not be the same, but it can impart some very interesting flavors, especially on younger whiskeys. So with that, we look into today's rye. Our first rye, we've had a wheat whiskey, we've had an American whiskey, and now we have a Kentucky straight rye. What's interesting about this is, again, Broken's pretty forthcoming by what's in their bottle. This does not have an age statement. It's the first one that states no age, but it does give us a 95.5 mash bill. Which the only thing that's interesting about that is normally we see that in the Northeast, and we see that in Indiana, our lovely friends, Ross and Squibb, whatever. I don't know what they're calling themselves. 95.5 rye is generally associated with those regions. Kentucky usually has the more 51% rye, 55% rye, and then some corn is in there, and then malted barley. It's a little bit softer. But this one's a more almost a pure rye. Their finishing bill for this one is a little bit more diverse than the other ones that they've done. We have 40% ex-bourbon barrel staves, 40% new French oak staves, and 20% sherry staves, which is interesting. So again, if you're not familiar, think of this kind of like a Maker's 46 situation, where you take aged whiskey and you throw staves of varying barrels into the original barrel to give it a new flavor. So let's see what happens when we take a rye whiskey, 105 proof, and finish with some ex-bourbon, some new French oak, and some sherry. Now, right off the bat, this gives me a little bit of a tinny, light, slightly metallic-y nose, which I've gotten before. But there's some lovely herbal, I'm really into the rye, grainy herbal notes. I don't always love them on bourbon because I want that sweet caramel, honey, blah, blah, blah. But on ryes, I like that spicy, herbal, floral nature, mintiness even. And on the nose, you're getting some mint. You're getting some herbaceousness. It's actually really nice. And then you get maybe a little bit of that almondy, sweet sherry nature. Just a little bit. It was only 20% of the staves. So let's take a sip. Now we're welcoming some like warm black pepper spice, complemented with this like warm vanilla nougatiness. Yeah, on a rye, I know. In addition to some mint, more of that floral nature, that grainy floral nature. Again, we don't know the age, but I don't care. Rye whiskey matures so much better than bourbon. It is so much more diverse. Not diverse, but you know what I mean. Versatile. It can be great at 2 years. It can be great at 20 years. And everything in between. That's what I love about rye whiskey. And the oak bill, the oak finishing, the stave finishing on this one is actually really interesting. But the proof too is really great. 105. Strong enough to give me everything I need, but I don't need cask strength everything. It balances some of the bourbon barrel and oak barrel creaminess, vanilliness, with that sweet sherry, with the lovely herbaceous mintiness. Finish isn't desperately long, but I don't need it to be. This is a rye whiskey that I probably would not mix. So many people use rye, especially like 95.5 ryes, because it's so spicy, so powerful. Oh, that's great to mix into something like an old fashioned. because the spice overcomes the sweetness of the sugar, and then there's the bitters. It kind of is a full dichotomy of flavors, which I like to do that too with ryes. But this one is so fun and good and delicious. I would drink this on its own almost exclusively. So out of all the Broken Barrel releases so far, again, there's a reason I've had more of this than all the other samples, is the Heresy Straight Rye Whiskey, finished with ex-bourbon, new French oak, and sherry staves. I highly recommend you check that one out. That's been my favorite of the series. And while there might be some youth and some flaws that Broken Barrel is covering up, like a lot of people do with finishing processes, especially on younger whiskeys, I think what they're trying here is worthwhile and isn't simply a grab to take some cheap young whiskey and throw new flavors in it to try to cover it up. I don't feel like that's going on here at all. And these have all been good and interesting, with the most being this rye whiskey. So keep an eye on, regardless of how you feel, even if after this you feel like, I don't know, it's a little weird, it's a little gimmicky, keep an eye on them, because I think they're going to keep trying to do some very interesting flavor combinations. But until then, we'll see you on the next one. Check it out. Hit like, hit subscribe, please, so we can keep in touch whenever these videos goes live. And leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm. We like algorithms. Make it happen. Thanks, everybody.